Hello, my name is Daisy Trejo, and today I will examine whether the Transhumanism project is morally defensible, and whether philosophers such as John Stuart Mill and Epicurus would be likely to support it. And I will conclude with my own position. But before turning to specific philosophers, it is important to recognize that this debate is not just about technology, but about how we understand human nature, progress, and the limits of moral responsibility. Transhumanism forces us to ask not only what we can do, but what we should do, and whether there are boundaries that ought not to be crossed. So, before evaluating specific philosophers' views, it is useful to clarify the broader ethical tension at the center of transhumanism. At its core, transhumanism challenges a long-standing philosophical divide between two ways of thinking about progress. First is the idea that improving human life through science and technology is inherently good. This view sees enhancement as a natural continuation of medicine. Just as we already cure disease, relieve pain, and extend life, transhumanism simply takes this process a step further. And second is the concern that not all forms of improvement are morally neutral. Some challenges may alter fundamental aspects of what it means to be human, including our sense of identity, our relationships with others, and our understanding of achievement and meaning. And this creates central tension. Is transhumanism an extension of human flourishing, or does it risk undermining the very conditions that make that flourishing meaningful? In addition, there are three major ethical concerns that shape this debate. The first being fairness and inequality. If enhancements are expensive or limited, they may deepen existing social divisions. The second is autonomy and pressure. What begins as a choice may become an expectation, where individuals feel compelled to enhance in order to compete. And the third being human identity and meaning. If our abilities are engineered rather than developed, it raises a question about authenticity and the value of effort. And with these concerns in mind, we can now evaluate how different philosophical frameworks would approach transhumanism. But first, we're going to start off by defining transhumanism. And transhumanism is a view that human beings can, and in many cases, should use technology to enhance their physical and cognitive capacities. These enhancements may include genetic modification, artificial intelligence integration, and life-extending medical interventions. Underlying this movement is the assumption that human nature is not fixed, but rather malleable and open to improvement. And this raises the important ethical question whether, if human nature can be altered, under what conditions, if any, is it morally permissible to do so? The moral defensibility of transhumanism largely depends on how one evaluates its complications and its implications. On one hand, transhumanism promises clear benefits. It offers the possibility of reducing or even eliminating disease, extending human lifespan, and significantly improving the quality of life. And from this perspective, it can be seen as like a continuation of medical and technological progress. On the other hand, as I mentioned, it introduces serial ethical concerns. Access to enhancement technologies may be unequal, potentially deepening existing social divisions, and extensive modification of human capacities may alter our understanding of identity, authenticity, and what it truly means to live a meaningful life. So this issue is not simply whether transhumanism is good or bad, but whether its benefits outweigh its risks, and under what constraints it should be pursued. So from the standpoint of John Stuart Mill, the central criterion for moral evaluation is utility, specifically the promotion of happiness and the reduction of suffering. From a utilitarian perspective, Mill's framework would likely support transhumanist technologies if they succeed in alleviating pain, curing disease, and enhancing overall well-being. However, Mill also places great importance on individual liberty. He argues that individuals should be free to make their own choices, provided that they do not harm others. For this exact reason, Mill's support would be conditional. He would endorse transhumanism insofar as it increases overall happiness, respects individual autonomy, and does not impose harm or coercion. And at the same time, if enhancements lead to coercive social pressures or produce significant inequalities that reduce overall well-being, it may become morally problematic within his own framework. The second philosopher, Epicurus, would offer more of a restrained view of human well-being. For Epicurus, the highest good is not the pursuit of constant improvement, but rather the attainment of peace or mind. He distinguishes between what he calls necessary and unnecessary desires. Necessary desires, such as those related to health, basic comfort, should be satisfied. However, unnecessary desires, particularly those driven by ambition or success, often lead to anxiety or dissatisfaction. And from this perspective, Epicurus might support limited forms of transhumanism, such as medical interventions that relieve suffering. However, he would likely be skeptical of enhancements that generate new and unnecessary desires or disturb peace of mind. And the pursuit of continuous improvement may trap individuals in this cycle of continuous dissatisfaction and ultimately will undermine happiness rather than improving it. And for my position, in my view, although transhumanism offers certain practical benefits, it is ultimately morally problematic, particularly when considered from the perspectives of law, civil rights, and religious and moral traditions. From a legal standpoint, transhumanism introduces difficult and unresolved questions. If individuals are significantly enhanced, whether cognitively, physically, or biologically, it becomes unclear how existing legal frameworks would apply. Issues such as equality before the law, accountability, and even the definition of personhood may be challenged. If some individuals possess enhanced capacities, this could create an uneven legal landscape in which equal protection becomes increasingly difficult to maintain. Closely related are concerns about civil rights. Transhumanist technologies are unlikely to be equally accessible, at least initially. And this raises the possibility of a society divided not only by wealth, but by biological and cognitive advantage. Such a division would deepen existing inequalities and create new forms of discrimination where those without enhancements are systematically disadvantaged. In addition, religious and moral considerations prove further grounds for skepticism. Many religious traditions emphasize the inherent dignity and given nature of human life. And from this perspective, radically altering human capacities may not be seen as progress, but as a form of overreach. Even outside of religion, there remains a broader moral concern that the pursuit of continuous enhancement reflects a refusal to accept fundamental aspects of the human condition, including limitation and mortality. Taken together, these concerns suggest that transhumanism risks altering the ethical foundations upon which our legal and social systems are built. And in conclusion, while transhumanism may be defensible in limited cases, particularly in the context of medicine and the reduction of suffering, it becomes far more difficult to justify when it extends into the realm of radical enhancement. Philosophers such as John Stuart Mill and Epicurus provide valuable frameworks for evaluating these issues. While Mill's framework may permit transhumanism under certain conditions, thinkers like Epicurus raise significant moral objections. This debate ultimately reflects a deeper tension between human nature as something to be perfected and something to be accepted. From my perspective, the risks associated with transhumanism, particularly those involving inequality, legal uncertainty, and moral overreach, ultimately outweigh its potential benefits. Technological progress should continue, but it must remain grounded within ethical limits that preserve human dignity, protect our civil rights, and respect the moral principles that shape our understanding of what it means to be human. Ultimately, the question is not only whether we can transform ourselves, but whether doing so is consistent with the principles of justice, equality, and moral responsibility that sustain our society. Thank you.